Serafina, my wife, is a legendary master in the world of Western handcrafted enamel porcelain, known as the Muse of Enamel. Her works have long took pride of place in the prime spots of top art galleries in New York and Paris.
Yet she smashed with her own hands the one-of-a-kind royal custom enamel vase Blazing Dragon, which we had crafted for Lord Edward of Britain to mark his 80th birthday.
All because Ethan, her favorite young apprentice, sobbed that this Yumlong lion design of borrowed has from into Imitation project. I was at my wit's end when my assistant handed me a screenshot of Serafina's Instagram. There she was, at the London art exhibition, beaming beside Ethan, tenderly adjusting his bow tie.
So this was why she'd destroyed a decade of our hard work, just to pave the way for her so-called prodigy.
Mr. Evans, Lord Edward's private secretary has called 3 times to follow up. What do we do now? There's no way we can remake it in time.
No need. Tell the secretary we're breaching the contract. Issue a statement that the studio will voluntarily pay double the deposit as compensation. She claims to guard originality? Then she should have no complaints about smashing her own livelihood with her own hands.
Mr. Evans, the secretary called again. He said Lord Edward will pursue this to the very end, and he'll have us blacklisted in the entire European art circle.
Fine beads of sweat broke out on my assistant's forehead. I looked at my anxious assistant and said, cancel all remedial measures. Inform the legal team to initiate the breach of contract process and pay double the deposit.
Mr. Evans, if we do this, the studio will be—
Let it go bankrupt. My phone rang, and Serafina's profile picture flashed on the screen. I answered and put it on speakerphone.
Darling, I've calmed Ethan down. Don't worry, he's dropping the plagiarism claim.
Her tone on the other end was condescending, as if she were bestowing a favor.
Why haven't you been answering my calls? Do you have any idea how worried I was?
I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. And in your heart, which one of us is the outsider, me or Ethan, whom you've known for less than 3 months?
What do you mean by that? Eli Evans, stop changing the subject.
Hardly had the words left her mouth when the solid wood door of the studio was slammed open.
Eli Evans, have you lost your mind? Breach the contract? Pay double compensation? Do you have any clue what this means? Don't you forget, it's me, Serafina, who's kept this studio afloat. You're just a technical director. What's smashing one vase? Even if I smashed 10, I could bounce back anytime I wanted.
Hysterical woman in front of me, I suddenly felt she was a complete stranger. For a decade of marriage, I'd scoured Europe for the finest kaolin and enamel glazes for her, and adjusted the firing temperature 1,000 times by the kiln for her creations. Yet in her eyes, I was worth less than a young apprentice she'd known for 3 months.
Ethan's right, you're just jealous of his talent. How dare someone who only knows how to knead clay and mix glazes talk about art?
Before Serafina could finish speaking, her personal phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, and the rage on her face melted into a tenderness I'd never seen before. Ethan? Yes, I'll take you to meet the real heavy-headeds in the art world tonight.
For 10 years of marriage, I'd handled every trivial matter of the studio for her, while she took all the praise and glory for herself, and thought it was only right. I picked up my work phone and dialed my assistant's number. Initiate asset liquidation immediately. Sell off all liquidable equipment and collections.
Mr. Evans, are you sure?
Absolutely. I just hung up when my phone screen lit up. Ethan had sent a snide propagation from an anonymous social media account. A hard-working craftsman like you will never work MT. I took a screenshot and sent it to Serafina. Her call came back in an instant, and her roar nearly split my eardrums.
Eli Evans, how long are you going to keep sowing discord with such cheap tricks as photo editing? Ethan's just a kid. Have you lost your mind framing him like this?
Serafina, calm down. Let's talk this through.
There's nothing to talk about. Eli Evans, I've had enough of you. Ethan's right. Being with someone like you, I'll never reach greater artistic heights.
Mr. Evans, there's one last contract left.
My assistant handed over the document with a trembling hand.
It's a custom contract with Vincent, the mafia godfather. Serafina signed it personally. The penalty for breach is—
I glanced at the number at the end of the contract. An 8-figure number. In euros.
It's a sky-high penalty. We'll lose everything. We'll even be crippled by massive debts.
My assistant's voice was filled with despair.
Have the car ready. We're going to Vincent's private estate. I'm going to terminate the contract in person.
Outside Vincent's private estate, Villa Fanza, the lights were coming on, and a line of limited edition supercars stretched into the distance. I'd just gotten out of the car when I saw Serafina walking toward me, linking arms with Ethan. She was wearing a haute couture gown worth a six-figure euro soar, and around her neck was the Harry Winston diamond necklace I'd given her. The moment she saw me, a look of disgust flashed in her eyes, and she didn't even bother to stop walking. Ethan immediately hid behind her, putting on a feigned look of fear.
Master, is Mr. Evans here to get revenge on me? I'm so scared.
Eli Evans, have you caused enough trouble? Aren't you embarrassed enough? Tracing us all the way here. You think you're the Studio's operations director? Right now, you're nothing.
I pulled the termination letter out of my suit inner pocket. The thin paper fluttered slightly in the night breeze. When Serafina saw the document in my hand, she immediately put at a condescending of hers.
What? Can't hold on anymore? Want me to beg Vincent for mercy?
She let out a cold laugh, her eyes filled with contempt.
It's too late. Get out of here now, and I'll pretend I never saw you.
I held up the document in my hand and the light glinted off the three English words termination letter, make them stingingly bright. I'm here to terminate the contract. Serafina's face turned deathly pale in an instant. She lunged at me, snatched the termination letter out of my hand, and after reading its contents, tore it to shreds in a frenzy.
How dare you, Eli Evans? I'm telling you, without me, you're nothing!
Just then, the estate's bodyguard stepped forward and cut off Serafina's screams. Mr. Vincent said he'll only see Mr. Evans tonight.
No! Please, let me see Mr. Vincent! I have something to say to him!
But the bodyguards had already grabbed her by the arms and were dragging her out of the estate.
I watched it all unfold, then turned and walked into the estate. Vincent sat behind a massive ebony desk, his expression calm, but his eyes sharp as an eagle's.
Mr. Evans, have a seat.
He slid the contract on the table toward me. It was the very one with the sky-high breach penalty that Serafina had signed in her own hand.
In this contract, Serafina promised to make me a set of enamel porcelain tea sets using the lost Wensenden Royal Enamel technique. Now, I want the goods.
She can't make them.
Then we'll follow the contract. I give you respect, but business is business. Within 3 days, either deliver the goods or pay the penalty.
Vince's efficiency and resolve were as unwavering as ever. I nodded and stood up to leave.
I just stepped out of the estate gate when Serafina's hysterical scream rang out behind me.
You just want to see me humiliated? See me beg for your mercy? 3 days! Do you have any idea where to find a craftsman who knows the Winster Royal Enamel technique in 3 days? This means I'll lose everything. A decade of my hard work gone in an instant. You leech! How dare you treat me like this?
Master, he's just jealous of your artistic achievements. Jealous that you care about me. Someone like him, with no artistic talent, could never understand our artistic pursuit.
The more Serafina listened, the angrier she got. She raised her hand to slap me again. Serafina, you signed that contract with your own hand. And now that things have gone wrong, you blame me? She wrenched her wrist free from my grasp, a flash of despair and madness in her eyes.
I don't care! You have to fix this for me! We're still husband and wife. You can't leave me to die.
I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of the divorce appointment email. I'd already booked an appointment at the local family court, 2 p.m. tomorrow, at the divorce registry.
You've lost your mind? No! I refuse to divorce you! Eli Evans, dare you go through with this divorce! I'll make sure you can never work in the European Art Circle again!
Master, he's threatening you. Classic player move. Create a crisis first, then pretend to save you, making you grateful to him for the rest of your life.
Serafina's eyes lit up as his words sank in. She suddenly realized what was going on.
That's right! You're putting on a show! You want me to beg for your help, don't you? Want me to bow down to you? I'm telling you, over my dead body. It's just 3 days. I, Serafina, have weathered every storm life has thrown at me.
Master, I know several national level. They'll definitely be willing to help you.
Ethan immediately fawned over her. Serafina linked arms with Ethan triumphantly.
See that? I have Ethan, and that's all I need. I've been sick of you for a long time.
I was tired of her nonsense. I turned and walked away.
Eli Evans, stop right there!
Serafina strouted at my back.
You think I'll be scared if you leave? I'm telling you, I'll live a better life without you.
I got in the car without looking back. My assistant started the car, and in the rearview mirror, I saw Serafina still stamping her feet and shouting insults where she stood.
Mr. Evans, do you think she could actually find a craftsman who knows the Windsor Royal enamel technique?
The Windsor Royal enamel technique had been lost for over a century. She thought she could find someone who knew it? Dream on. For the next 2 days, Serafina called every master craftsman in her contact list. Without exception, every master gave Serafina a negative answer.
Serafina? The Windsor Royal enamel technique? You must be joking. That craft was lost ages ago.
Well, if it isn't the muse of enamel, looking for someone to get you out of this mess? Sure. Hand over 3 million euros first, and I'll think about asking around for you.
Serafina? The Windsor Royal enamel technique? You must be joking. That craft was lost ages ago.
She and Ethan rushed around to every famous craft workshop in Europe, only to be turned away at every door.
As the deadline loomed, Ethan started making excuses to avoid her. In her despair, she finally started blowing up my phone with calls and messages, non-stop.
Eli, I was wrong. Help me just one last time. Darling, I'm begging you. Just help me get through this, and I'll do whatever you say. Answer the phone! You bastard! Are you trying to drive me to my death?
In the studio, I opened my private locker and took out the set of enamel craft tools I'd never shown anyone. For a decade, they'd been hidden away, and now they were finally going to see the light of day again.
My assistant pushed the door open and said,
Mr. Evans, Serafina's called over a dozen times. I didn't answer any of them. Also, she sent Ethan over to beg for your help. I threw him out. Mr. Evans, where will you go next?
My assistant asked cautiously. I wrapped the tools carefully in a velvet cloth, my voice soft but filled with unshakable resolve. To the divorce registry.
In the waiting area of the divorce registry.
Within minutes of sending the appointment email, Serafina's call came blasting through.
Threatening me with divorce? Eli Evans, that's a pretty cheap trick. If you want me to fix things with Vincent, just say it. Stop with these childish games. You want a divorce? I'll go through with it in a heartbeat. Anyway, I have Ethan now, and life is so much better with him than it ever was with you.
I took the divorce papers the staff handed me and signed my name, Eli Evans, on the line for the husband. This absurd decade of marriage, like that smashed enamel vase, was now nothing but dust.
As you wish. I held up the divorce papers, took a photo, and sent it to my legal assistant.
Before she signed, she bit her lip so hard it was almost bleeding. I thought I heard her whisper.
Do we really have to do this?
In the end, she signed her name, Serafina Renov. When I got the cold, hard divorce certificate, I held it up, took a photo, and sent it to my assistant right in front of her with a note. Inform the legal team. The divorce agreement takes immediately effect. Keisha parent the Fur Connor. When I'd done all that, I turned and walked away, not a shred of regret in my heart.
Eli Evans!
Serafina called after me, her voice filled with utter despair. I didn't stop walking.
Lord Edward sent an invitation to his private art appreciation gala, the most exclusive gathering of London's collector circle, happening tonight. The gala was held on the top floor of the Shard in central London. I pushed open the door to the venue, and it was filled with celebrities and the wealthy, all the top figures of Europe's art and business circles.
Serafina was standing in the middle of the crowd, linking arms with Ethan, wearing a sapphire blue haute couture gown, grinning from ear to ear in triumph.
Master Serafina has a real eye for talent. This boy was born to be an artist.
This is my protege, Ethan, a prodigy with an unlimited future.
Master Serafina has a real eye for talent.
This boy was born to be an artist.
Eli Evans, don't think you can run AMA here just because you know Vincent's bodyguards. Stay out of trouble and don't ruin my night. If you dare open your mouth and say something stupid, I'll ruin your reputation for good.
Hardly had the words left her mouth when a small commotion broke out on the other side of the venue. A spry elderly man walked through the crowd, his face filled with uncontainable excitement.
Eli, you finally decided to come out of hiding. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for you? Serafina's smile frozen on her face, as if someone had hit pause. Everyone's eyes darted between me and the elderly man, filled with shock and confusion. Ethan's face turned deathly pale. He clung tightly to Seraphine's sleeve, a flash of panic in his eyes.
Lord Edward? You know him?
Know him? I know him far more than that. His master was my sworn brother. And Eli, he's the legendary lost heir of the Windsor Royal enamel technique, a myth in Europe's enamel craft world for over a century.
That's impossible. He's just a goer, a so-called technical director whose only job is to adjust the temperature by the kiln.
Eli injured his hand 10 years ago. He chose to stay behind the scene to repay a awareness. Do you think your works made it in this industry on their own? Your so-called artistic talent is nothing but the fruit of a decade of his hard work.
It was my final gift to you.
Back then, you took care of me when I was injured, and I promised to make you a star for 10 years. For this past decade, I've taught you everything. The very essence of the Windsor Royal enamel technique. For 10 years, I've created the core craftsmanship of every single one of your enamel works. All the glory you've enjoyed, you've only ever stood on my shoulders to get it. Serafina trembled all over. She stared at me, her eyes filled with rage that slowly turned to fear.
Tonight's final lot is none other than a practice piece Eli made 10 years ago.
A singly auctioneer walked onto the stage, holding a seemingly plain enamel teacup in his hand. The cup looked unassuming, but the enamel patterns on its surface exuded an understated.
Starting bid, 5 million euros.
That starting bid was already higher than the highest price any of Serafina's works had ever forged.
We'll start the bidding at 10 million euros.
The price soared wildly, each bid slamming into Serafina like sponges.
50 million euros, 60.
She stared at the plain enamel teacup, then at herself, her eyes filled with despair. The price soared wildly, each bid slamming into Serafina's heart like a sledgehammer. She stared at the plain enamel teacup, then at herself, her eyes filled with despair. Her so-called artistic talent, the thing she'd prided herself on, was crushed to dust at this very moment.
Final bid, 80 million euros.
That price was more than 100 times what her proudest work had ever sold for. Serafina finally understood. Her so-called gifted talent was nothing but my shadow. All her glory and fame were ruthlessly shattered in an instant.
No, it's impossible. I'm a genius! I'm Serafina! I'm the muse of enamel!
A genius? Without Eli, you're nothing. Just a fame-hungry clown. So that's how it is.
No wonder her works always had an indescribable sense of sophistication.
Just a fraud. She tricked us all for 10 years. Poor Master Evans, wasting a decade of his life on this woman.
Every word seared into Serafina's heart like a red-hot iron. Her entire artistic world came crashing down at that moment. Ethan tried to sneak out of the venue, but a few guests stopped him.
Hey kid, your master's a fraud. So what about your so-called graduation project?
Ethan's face turned white as a sheet. He couldn't say a single word. Serafina suddenly lunged at me like a madwoman. The venue's bodyguards rushed forward and restrained her tightly. She thrashed around in the bodyguard's arms, her hair a mess, her eyes wild with madness.
I'm Serafina! I'm the muse of enamel!
Get this crazy woman out of here. She's ruining the artistic atmosphere.
Serafina's screams were cut short as the security guards dragged her away.
I glanced at Serafina, crumpled on the floor as she was dragged away, then turned to leave. Her desperate, heart-wrenching saws echoed behind me. A decade of patience. Finally over.
That smile held relief, confidence, and boundless hope for the future. The plane flew on, carrying me toward a brand new life. Back in London, Serafina sat in a detention cell, consumed by regret. She hadn't just smashed an enamel vase, she'd smashed her own fate. I'd already forgiven her, not out of mercy, but because she no longer deserved my hatred. My phone vibrated again, another text message, sent from an anonymous channel in the detention center. This time, I deleted it without even opening it. Some people are just part of the past, and I was destined for something far greater. Lord Edward's granddaughter saw me put my phone away and pushed a drafted Intangible Cultural Heritage Revival Project plan in front of me. Her name was Chloe. She'd just graduated from the Craft and Design program at the London College of Art, her eyes bright with the vitality and courage of youth, her entire being radiating a love for traditional crafts. Chloe pushed the plan forward, her voice clear and bright.
Master Evans, this is a preliminary plan I've made based on the current state of Lemoy's enamel craft. The core is to rebuild a training base for the Windsor Royal enamel technique to discover and nurture young master craftsmen.
I took the plan she handed me, my fingers brushing the English words on the page. It was clear she'd done her homework. From Cowian selection and enamel glaze mixing to traditional technique teaching and the market integration of enamel cultural heritage crafts, every detail was thorough and practical.
Who controls the Kylan mines and core enamel glaze mines in Limoges right now? I flipped to the raw materials section of the plan and looked up at Chloe.
The essence of the Windsor Royal enamel technique lay first and foremost in raw materials. If the mines were controlled by others, the road to revival would be fraught with difficulties.
Chloe's smile faded a little. She pointed her finger at a family name on the plan, the Holt family, Ethan's family. Ethan's family, the Holts, have a monopoly on 3 core Colin mines and 2 enamel glaze mines in Limoges. Portnery Crafton can then go to inferior EDSA tile, and they're even exploited at turns. Huster ever been a tripled. My fingers paused for a moment, a flash of coldness in my eyes. The Holt family had not only injured my hand and tried to steal the Windsor Royal enamel technique, but now they were monopolizing the core raw materials, trying to cut off the very foundation of Europe's handcrafted enamel industry. It was time to settle the score. Does Mr. Vincent have connections in Limoges that reach the mining sector? I thought of Vincent's influence. He held significant sway in both the business and underground circles of Western Europe. Lord Edward took over the conversation, picking up the cup of black tea on the table and taking a sip.
Vincent was in the mining trade in his early years, and he's on good terms with the local mining authorities in Limoges. But the Holt family has been rooted in Limoges for over a century. Their influence is far-reaching and intricate. Confronting them head-on would be unwise. It would only bring unnecessary trouble.
We don't need to confront them head-down. I set the plan down on the table, tapping my fingers lightly on the surface, a plan already forming in my mind. Wensinus one anulum technique and Timri relied thensul on Calton Qual. It relies on the Holjan's Vinings and of stemplance of neat properties, for using empowered of the fall temperature, and Rio Biong Tros for Presker, when Mshual de Dua should break the dead bug. The plane landed at Lumos Airport in France, the birthplace of European enamel craft, and the place where I'd studied the Windsor Royal enamel technique on my master a decade ago. I just stepped out of the airport when I saw Vincent's personal driving at the gate, holding a carved sandalwood box in his hands.
Mr. Evans, Mr. Vincent asked me to give this to you.
I opened the box. Inside was a palm-sized piece of Kylian, pale white in texture, rare grade 1 Kylian, and a zinjers of secret color enameled glaze, both top-tier raw materials for the Windsor technique. I closed the box and nodded at the driver. Thank Mr. Vincent for me. When we meet in London sometime, I'll make a set of Windsor Royal enamel tea sets for him with my own hands.
The car drove through the streets of Limoges. Small enamel workshops could be seen everywhere by the roadside, but most were quiet and lifeless.
Master Evans, this is Master Maurice's workshop. He's one of the few elders in Limoges who still knows the traditional handcrafted clay forming and clade enamel techniques. A few years ago, he refused to supply the Holt family, so they cut off all his raw materials. Now he can only make a meager living by crafting small enamel ornaments.
I told the driver to stop, then pushed the door open and got out. I pushed the door open and saw an elderly man with white hair sitting at a workbench, kneading a piece of inferior cout slowly, getting it ready for forming. His movements were slow, but they held the engraced discipline of a master craftsman. Every knead was precise and methodical.
Hearing the noise, the old man looked up at me, a hint of wariness and distance in his eyes.
Are you with the Holt family? I've already said I won't take your work. Get out of here.
Master Maurice, we're not with the Holt family. This is Mr. Eli Evans, the only heir to the Windsor Royal enamel technique. He's come to Limoges to rebuild a training base for the Windsor technique and revive the traditional enamel craft.
The Windsor Royal enamel technique? It's been lost for ages. Where would an heir come from? The Holt family has dragged the name of the Windsor technique through the mud all these years. Don't try to fool me with that title. I won't fall for it.
I didn't argue. I walked over to the workbench and took the piece of inferior kaolin from the old man's hands. The moment my fingers touched the Cayuan, I knew everything about it. The moisture content, the density, the sand content, all crystal clear in my mind. I walked over to the clay forming machine in the corner of the workshop, turned it on, and placed my hands on the clay, rotating it slowly. The clay rose slowly in my hands, transforming from an irregular lump into the rough shape of a vase, then the neck, then the mouth, all in one smooth, unbroken motion, not a single unnecessary move. The Windsor Royal clay forming technique emphasizes the hand follows the heart, the clay follows the hand. Every bit of pressure from the fingertips must be precise to create a porcelain body with a natural curve and even thickness.
I didn't make an intricate shape, just a basic Winston straight enamel cup. But I showcased the very essence of the Winston technique's clay forming and trimming to perfection. The moment the forming machine stopped, Master Maurice's eyes widened to the size of saucers.
Morris was a master of his craft. His hands trembled slightly as he stood up and walked to the workbench. He reached out to touch the clay cup, then pulled his hand back, afraid his rough fingers would damage the perfect porcelain body.
Is this the Wincentor Royal freehand forming technique? Are you really the heir to the Wincentor Royal enamel technique?
I nodded and set the tools down on the table beside me. Master Maurice, the Windsor technique was never lost. It was just hidden among the people. I've come here to rebuild a training bastie for the Windsor Waya technique, to train on the Windsor karate, and to let the Lemens of Limo get fair by Killjogs Barplagerinweld, so they can focus on their craft in peace, no longer exploited by the Holt family.
Master Maurice's eyes turned red in an instant. He wiped the corners of his eyes with his sleeve and let out a heavy sigh.
Good. The Windsor technique finally has an heir. I thought I'd never live to see the Windsor technique see the light of day again.
Master Maurice held my hand, his voice filled with excitement. Mr. Evans, I'm with you. Even without raw materials from the whole Holt family, this old body of mine can help you teach the young craftsmen all the techniques I've learned in my life to them.
When I walked out of Master Maurice's workshop, more than a dozen young craftsmen followed me. All Maurice's apprentices, or young people from other workshops in Limoges. I stared at the young people in front of me, their faces filled with dedication to their craft and hope for the future. A warm current welled up in my heart.
The revival of the Windsor Royal enamel technique was never just my fight. It was the fight of all craftsmen who loved enamel and clung to their artisan spirit. We chose the old enamel kiln factory in Limoges as the several for the training old kilns, though they'd been unused for years, falling into despair and covered in dust. The renovation funds Vincent sent arrived soon after. Local craftsmen worked through the night, cleaning the kiln factory, repairing the forming machines, clogier workbenches, and the century-old kilns. In just 3 days, the old kiln factory took shape. A wooden plaque was hung at the gate. Ethan walked swaggerly into the training base, wearing a haute couture suit and followed by several tall bodyguards, a proud and contemptuous smile on his face.
Eli Evans, long time no see. Didn't expect you'd hide out in Limoges and set up this fancy training base. Quite the show you're putting on. Anyone who didn't know better would think you could actually revive that outdated Windsor craft. I know you're short on raw materials and funds. This training base is just an empty shell. With this agreement, I'll offer 10 million euros to buy 80% of the shares in this training base. From now on, the Windsor Royal Animal Technique will belong to the Holt family. You can be a figurehead director, live a life of luxury, and collect dividends every year. Isn't that better than slaving away here for some so-called heritage?
Ethan Holt, your family has a monopoly on Lumos raw materials and bullies craftsmen. Now you want to steal the Windsor technique? Have some shame!
Old man, this isn't your place to speak. Dare say another word and I'll make sure you can't even make small ornaments. Your workshop will be closed for good.
I raised my hand to stop the furious Master Maurice, bent down to pick up the share transfer agreement from the table, and tore it to shreds piece by piece. The paper scraps fell to the ground, like a layer of snow, swirling in the kiln factory's wind.
I find the Holt family's money disgusting. The Windsor Royal Enamel Technique is a treasure passed down by our ancestors, not a private possession the Holt family can covet. I'll find a way to get the raw materials on my own. I'll pass on the Windsor Technique on my own too. I don't need the fake kindness of the Holt family.
Ethan's face darkened in an instant, a flash of viciousness in his eyes, his whole body exuding malice.
Eli Evans, don't refuse a kindness when it's offered.
Limoges is Holt family territory. Setting up this training base here means you're against the Holt family, against all the mining capital in Limoges. I'll give you 3 days. Either sign this agreement or get out of Limoges. Otherwise, I'll turn this training base of yours into a pile of rubble and you won't be able to touch a single piece of Kion in this city.
With that, Ethan let out a cold snort, turned, and left with his bodyguards. Before he went, kicked over a clay nettling basin beside him, spilling clay all over the floor, a blatant provocation. The craftsmen around us all looked worried, frowning and whispering to each other. Chloe walked up to me too, frowning.
Master Evans, Ethan means what he says. The Holt family has too much power in Limoges. He'll definitely sabotage us. Should we pause the training base's work for now, lie low, and plan for the long term?
Lie low? I shook my head and walked over to the century-old kiln nearby, running my fingers over the lines at time and the seal of the Windsor technique. Craftsmen of the Windsor technique never shy away from trouble, and we never bow to power. Let them come. I'd like to see if they can smash the artisan spirit of Windsor,
or the very roots of European enamel craft. I told Chloe to contact Vincent at once, asking him to keep an eye on the Holt family's every move. I also had Master Maurice organize the craftsmen of Lemoyne into teams to take turns guarding the training base, preventing any secret sabotaging. As for me, I retreated to the private workshop in the kiln factory, starting to design new enamel vessel shapes and plan a Windsor Royal Enamel Craft Appreciation event proving the value of the Windsor technique with sheer skill.
I would make the entire European art and collector crowns know. The Windsor Royal Enamel technique lives on. Its heir lives on. The Holt family's dream of monopolizing Limoges enamel industry and erasing the Windsor technique was nothing but a fantasy.
But I never expected Ethan to strike so quickly and ruthlessly, with absolutely no moral boundaries. Right in the middle of preparations for the appreciation event, the training base's workshop was ransacked. As I looked at the mess before me, I actually smiled.
The clay forming machines were smashed to pieces. The gold and silver wires for cloisonné were cut up. The freshly mixed enamel glazes were all poured out. Even the wooden plaque at the gate that read Windsor Royal Enamel Technique, Intangible Cultural Heritage Training Base, was split in two with an axe, thrown on the ground, and trampled all over.
To make matters worse, Ethan spread rumors in Limoges enamel market and on Oljo Ishru social plats, claiming my Windsor Royal Anning technique was a fake, that I was a fraud make money in name of inengible hevertide iteration. He even had someone forbid evidence to smear my reputation. Overnight, the enamel circle in Limoges was abuzz with talk. Many craftsmen who had planned to join the training base began to hesitate, some even questioning my identity, afraid to contact me for afraid of offended the Holt family.
Chloe stared at the wrecked workshop, her eyes red with tears, but she held them back and grint his teeth.
Master Evans, let's call the police. Let the Limoges police handle this. This is intentional property damage. The Holt family can't act with such impunity.
I knelt down, picked up a shard of the broken porcelain body, and ran my fingers over it. The edge was sharp, pressing into my palm.
Calling the police won't help.
The Holt family has been rooted in Limoges for over a century and has long since made arrangements with local officials. Their arrival is merely a formality. They have no intention of truly helping us, and may even make things difficult for us.
Besides, police can't resolve a war of words. Only strength can make everyone fall silent. Ethan wants to ruin my reputation, make the Windsor Royal Enamel technique doubted and forgotten. Then I'll slap him in the face with my skill. Show him what the real Windsor technique is. I made the decision on the spot. Move the Windsor Royal Enamel Appreciation event forward. Hold it right here at the ransacked training base and prove the authenticity and uniqueness of the Windsor technique to everyone by making enamelware live, showcasing its core craftsmanship.
Mr. Evans, this is far too risky. The training base is in shambles, not a single decent workbench left. And Ethan will definitely come to cause trouble. He'll never let your demonstration go smoothly.
It's precisely because it's risky that it matters. It'll let everyone see that the craftsmen of the Windsor technique never fear a challenge.
Gel everyone. 3 days from now, the Windsor Royal Enamel Appreciation will veal at the training Gidi, as you said Windernerd, as planned.
Everyone is welcome to watch, to question, to verify. The flame pattern relief was the core secret of the Windsor Royal Enamel technique, the very craft behind the blazing dragon vase Serafina had smashed. Now that I'd announced I'd demonstrate it live, every enamel craftsman in Limoges, every collector and art crystallist across Europe wanted to see for themselves if this lost technique really still existed. When Ethan heard the news, he even posted on social media, vowing to expose my scam at the event, to ruin my reputation in front of the entire European art circle.
The day before the appreciation event, I led all the craftsmen in cleaning up the training base through the night, repairing the smashed forming machines and workbenches, mixing the enamel glazes. We picked up the split packle, pieced it back together roughly, and hung it against the gore again, broken, but unbroken in the spirit of the Windsor technique.
Vincent also got wind of what was happening, and sent dozens of professional bodyguards to guard every corner of the training base, patrolling day and night to prevent the Holt family from sabotaging us again, ensuring the event went smoothly. But the Holt family's viciousness exceeded all my expectations. In the pre-dawn hours of the event, someone snuck into the training base, stuffing rags, dirt, and other debris into the flue of the main kiln, mixing wet firewood into the kiln's fuel, even adding sand to the kaolin I'd prepared. They would spare no cost to make me look foolish. They wanted the porcelain body to crack as I made it live, the kiln to malfunction during firing, making me a laughingstock in public,
branding me a fraud for good. At the first light of dawn, I went to check the kiln and raw materials. I spotted the debris in the fluff at a glance, felt the wet firewood in the fuel, and sensed the sand in the kiln the moment I squeezed it.
Chloe saw all this and trembled with anger, her eyes red.
Ethan must have done this. The Holt family is so despicable. They don't want to compete. They want to destroy the Windsor technique completely.
I didn't get angry. Instead, I calmly told the craftsman to clear all the debris from the flue, pick out the wet firewood, and replace it with dry oak firewood. Oak burns with a steady flame, easy to control the temperature, the perfect fuel for enamel firing. Moreover, I resifted and kneaded the kiln according to sand content to remove all sand. I also made simple modifications to the kiln based on its damage, adjusting the flue vents to make the fire more even, better suited for firing Windsor technique enamelware. On the day of the event, the training base was packed with people, elderly and young craftsmen from Limoges, top collectors and art critics from across Europe, and many famous media reporters with cameras and microphones, ready to record this highly anticipated event.
Ethan also came, accompanied by several Holt family elders and a few so-called masters from the European enamel circle he'd bribed. They sat in the front row, grinning like they were watching a show, their eyes filled with viciousness and disdain.
They were certain I'd make a fool of myself today, that they'd expose me on the spot.
Chloe walked up to the makeshift stage, picked up the microphone, cleared her throat, and her voice echoed through every corner of the training base via the speakers.
Honored guests, fellow craftsmen, dear media friends. Today, the Windsor Royal Enamel Technique showed disappreciation wet, not for fame or fortune, but to show you the Drew Windsor Royal Enamel take, to prove it has never been lost, and to affirm it of traditional show the value. Next, please welcome the sole heir to the Windsor Royal Enamel Technique, Mr. Eli Evans, to make a new Windsor enamel piece live, showcasing its closely guarded secret, the flame pattern relief.
As her words fell, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. All eyes were on me, filled with anticipation, doubt, and curiosity.
I walked up to the clay forming machine on the stage, where a piece of top-grade kaolin and a small jar of secret color enamel glaze were laid out. The very premium raw materials Vincent had given me. I picked up the kiln, placed it on the forming machine, and said nothing, only turning on the machine with a light touch. The hum of the rotating machine rang out clearly in the silent training base. I placed my hands on the smooth kaolin, my fingertips feeling the clay's temperature and texture. I recited the craftsmanship mantras of the Windsor technique in my heart, clearing my mind of all distractions. My eyes were fixed only on the clay in my hands, on the enamel piece about to take shape. The clay rose, rotated, and took shape in my hands, every movement smooth and seamless, precise to the millimeter. The vase's body, neck, and mouth took shape in one unbroken motion, with a natural curve and even thickness, not a single unnecessary mark, showcasing the essence of the Windsor technique to perfection. Windsor Royal freehand forming technique, working with the arms suspended in the air, no support at all, controlling the clay's rotation and shaping with the strength of the fingertips. A single misstep and the porcelain body would collapse. The crowd held their breath, their eyes fixed unblinkingly on my hands, watching the lump of kaolin turn into an exquisite vase prototype in my palms. The once noisy venue fell so silent that only the hum of the forming machine and my breath could be heard. After forming the clay, I began trimming the porcelain body, doing clo-mache, carving patterns, and filling the glazes. The carving of the Windsor technique emphasizes chapping form and spirit. Its body winding, its head raised, vivid, lifelike with smooth and delicate lines. When attaching the vasiers and filling the glazes, I used the Windsor technique's wire inlay and glaze filling method, embedding hair-thin gold wires into different colored enamel glazes with pinpoint accuracy, layering wires and glazes merged into one, not a single gap in between. The entire production process was done in one smooth flow. No pauses, no mistakes. Every step from clay forming to glaze filling was flawless, showcasing the exquisite craftsmanship and uniqueness of the Windsor Royal enamel technique in all its glory. But Ethan's face darkened by the second, from amusement at first to panic, then to viciousness. His hands were clenched into tight fists, his knuckles white, his eyes filled with disbelief and jealousy. The Baz apprentice page de la main rang out the art of the Windsor. When the vase was fully shaped, I painted this with a century-old kiln. Firing enamel in the Windsor Royal technique requires 9 heating and 9 cooling cycles. The temperature must be controlled with absolute precision. 1 degree too high, and the cracks. 1 degree too low, and the glaze loses its luster. The insuled wires fall off easily. I stood by the kiln, never leaving its side, watching the thermometer on the kiln, adding a handful of oak firewood from time to time, adjusting the flend vents to control the flame's size and temperature. Every movement was calm and precise. 3 hours later, the fire was perfect. I slowly opened the kiln door, and a rich, fresh enamel scent spread out in an instant, filling the entire training base. I put on heat-resistant gloves, carefully took the enamel vase out of the kiln, and placed it on a velvet display stool on the stage.
And it is a piece that I made myself. This vase is named Return to Purity. Return to purity, never forget one's original intent. This is the artisan spirit of the Windsor Royal Enamel Technique, and it's why I made this vase.
The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, louder than ever before. The elderly craftsmen all stood up, clapping excitedly, some even tearing up as they walked to the stage, carefully touching the vase's body, their eyes filled with awe and admiration.